The Game Schooler podcast is a weekly audio show that educates new and experienced gamers about the awesomeness of tabletop gaming. In this week's episode, we'll cover Star Explorer, our game of the week, discuss player interaction in the School of Gaming, and wrap it up by revealing our high five route building games. Welcome to the Game Schooler podcast. I'm your host, Doug Kotecki, along with my co-host, Dr. Michael McCabe. How's it going, Michael?
What's happening, Doug? How are you?
I can't complain. Doing better than I deserve. How about you?
Yeah, no, equally. Things are good. Life's good. Excited to be here. Episode 229, if I'm doing my math correctly.
That is correct.
The last few episodes I've been estimating our episode number. I thought, I better get more professional than that. Had some family time. You know, we do like a little Christmas in July, and I shamelessly pushed our podcast. By the campfire one night, the word Spotify came up. I said, "You're on Spotify?" Yeah. Once you go to the Game Schooler podcast right now and just give us 5 stars, you have no idea how much good that does. And they're like, "Well, what does it do?" I said, "It brings free board games into my house." I said, no, for real though. When we get a 5-star review, the algorithm brings us more listeners.
Yeah, the Wizard of Oz brings us more listeners.
Yeah, and different sectors and parts of the country and world. So really do appreciate all our listeners that are out there giving us some love on whatever your podcast listener of choice is. So just want to put that out there, starting with my own family again. That's how big my family is. I can't capture them all in 1 year or one event. We're
can't
5
remember
years
who
in.
you talked to.
I do remember who I talked to. I'm very selective about who I talk to, Doug. So you just haven't gotten to all
you
of
have
them yet.
The family is large enough that there's people that you need to avoid.
Not my wife's side of the family. No. How about you? What's new and different, wonderful? Any board game related announcements?
Not much. I have very little in the way of follow up. I do have would like to share an awesome experience I have or had, and that's gaming with a group that's larger than you typically would. So I got to play a game of Survivor: The Tribe Has Spoken with some family, and I think there was 6 of us playing, so that's a larger group than I'm used to, and I was playing with some very avid Survivor fans, which I am not. Where they can tell you.
Is there an era of the television show that you were more familiar with? Like, I watched for the first 4 seasons 20 years ago. Okay, so it's no knowledge.
No, I have no knowledge of that
I
IP.
just needed to ground our conversation here.
Whatsoever. People I'm playing with can tell you the winners from all 50 seasons. It is quite the sport to them. And when we get together on holidays, while there is a current season going on, there is a lot of chatter about who should be voted off and who's the slimy snake and all of that type of stuff.
For real?
They have a problem. They have problems. One of them is their love of Survivor. But I got to play this game with 6 people, and I mean I know vaguely about what Survivor is about and the premise of the show.
Well, in case somebody doesn't, why don't you paint that for them?
It's a group of strangers on an island, and they work to stay on the island to be the last survivor to win, I believe, $1 million. Which
King of the Hill, betrayal.
Yeah,
it's in the vein of those types of games.
So you're essentially in this game, and from what I've gathered, and I have heard that it does a very good job of feeling like the TV show. And I can concur with that I felt that way. I have come to the conclusion that I am just awful at these type of games in which there's setting up alliances, breaking alliances, and it just it's not in my wheelhouse. It also doesn't help when you're the designated family gamer or gamer in the family.
So people thought you were going to be better.
Well, you have a large target on your back right from the start. So because I have a bunch of board games and a board game podcast, you need to get him out of there because he's going to be he'll destroy us. So I tried to stay under the radar for a little bit, but I just don't have any patience for maneuvering and let's do this. Just not interesting to me whatsoever, which is why I'm terrible at those games. I'm like, okay, let's be in an alliance. Oh, you broke the alliance. Oh, that may be coming across as I didn't enjoy my experience. I did. It was fun, and it was great, and it's always fun playing with more players than you're used to. I think last
Why
week...
is that?
Usually when you get a group, for me anyway, anytime I'm playing in a group that large, it always tends to be family, and it tends to be incorporate a lot of non-gamers into it. So it's they're usually not heavy games, and there's a levity to it and a brightness and fun that people are having that sometimes I think can be missing when you are playing crunchy Euro games, which have their place and are fun too, and I enjoy them. But sometimes you can get a little bit too much of head down counting my goods and resources and kind of miss the activity around the table. So
well, and don't you think that just that participation level of interaction, of engagement, it's not just you and me competing over one shared goal. It's all of us, right? And I feel like that the ability to be able to bounce off of multiple people multiple times throughout a game, that's something that I really enjoy when you get into those games with 6 to 8, 6 to 11, 11 to 15 people, and probably not an experience you're going to be able to do every week either, right? Yeah. So don't you feel like once you're in the middle of it, it's like, oh, this is fun. This is kind of special. I'm not going to be able to play with this many people again for a long time. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I've enjoyed that recently too. Oh, in terms of games-wise, what I've played, what's awesome?
What's awesome? What's awesome in gaming?
Yeah, well, what's awesome with gaming for me, I got a couple of classics to the table, and I'm going to be repeating some things that have appeared on our Discord, so apologies to our avid Discord followers and friends over there, but I got to play Catan 3D, and I could not have been more excited to get that special edition to the table, and you know what, even if it's the crusty old Settlers of Catan from... circa, I don't think
you're
I had
dating
the 95.
yourself.
Yeah, I know, but it was like that 1997-ish.
Yeah.
Well, just a good game, 3 to 4 people who know how to play it, and it was moving. We didn't have the trade guy at the table who's trying to trade off turns. It was a fun, competitive, laid-back game of Catan that got done in 90 minutes. And those things don't always happen when that game hits the table, but had a blast. And then also got Lords of Waterdeep played. And the last time that I'd played that game was on vacation with you. I think that was in 2022. I believe that was 3 years ago already. Some of those games are classics for a reason. They're just so much fun, and you get back into it. And then Lords of Waterdeep is a kind of a quintessential worker placement game that's played over 8 rounds where at least 2 or 3 times during the game, you're not going to have something you desperately need. It was, really, really good experience. Have we covered that as a game of the week?
I don't
think so. It was in and out of print for the longest of time. But yeah, just a solid day of gaming. Other stuff for you?
No, I was just curious. So when was the last time that you had played Catan before that? And having played it this time, do you feel like it holds up is not the right word, but were you pleasantly surprised by the experience of it being better, or were you like, okay, yeah, it's showing its age, or what were your thoughts?
I don't think the game shows its age.
Such a gap between plays.
Well, so I played it. It was at a family event. It was Christmas or New Year's. end of 2023 or going into 2024. And I talked about it on the show. I think my biggest takeaway with Catan, it is group dependent. It plays, I think, my opinion, best at 3 or 4. The last time I played, I added on an expansion. One of my nephews had an expansion and wanted everybody to be able to play, which is awesome at a family event. But with 6 people and late at night, and some people at the table have had some libations, the game really dragged on.
Yeah.
So I just got to play with my daughter and some of her friends, and it was just a good experience. The game moved. We got it around the table pretty quickly. I wasn't the one to pick out the game. Somebody else did. And, they were looking at a whole stack of games, and they sheepishly said, well, I kind of want to play Catan. And I was just thrilled to be able to play it. I know you've had to play in the last few months with your family, right?
Yeah. For me, it was just rekindling a love affair.
Same. I would say same.
Okay. Yeah. So I was just kind of curious of where you fell on that.
And when I was crashing the Dice Tower East party, where I actually fell into it, I saw the Star Explorers version. I'm getting the name wrong. We're gonna have a crossover. Yeah. Somebody is going to be a Game Schooler podcast listener, loves Survivor, and Catan's going to be their favorite game. And they're going to trash us here. But I saw that game out on the table, and I was intrigued by it because in the past I've been dismissive and fairly derisive of, do we really need a Catan and space game? But then when I saw what was going on and how the rockets were building, I was like, ooh, kind of want to add that to a want and trade list. What's it called, Doug?
Starfarers.
Yeah. Yep. So I saw that on the table, and I thought, boy, I really want to get Catan back to the table. And so when the opportunity came up, I jumped at it. It's a game I'd like to play more often, and I have probably 15 of those games in my collection, whether it's Wingspan or Catan or Clank, some that I would consider to be classics for me in my collection that every time I get to play them, I'd put Lords of Waterdeep there too, even though I have so few plays of it lifetime. It's just a great game to explore. Every game's different. Every game, every experience, and pretty tough to not have fun at the table with games like that, as long as people aren't taking 17 minutes per turn and doing all the math for all possibilities.
Yeah,
that was an editorial.
One
other thing to add, though,
trying to trade sheep relentlessly.
Yeah, I have to be guilty of that. How'd you know? I was in a development card race where I needed to continue to get knights. We actually ran through the entire development deck, Doug.
Wow.
Which is the first time I've ever seen that. And so I was the guy, hey, buddy, anybody need a sheep? I really need a wheat. No, it was good. Go ahead.
Anything else, or what else you got?
Yeah, one other thing I just want to add in, and I've posted some of this over on Twitter, X, I should say. I think we're a few years into that.
It's sticking.
It is. So 2 quick things, I'll be quick with it. One, friend of ours who's been on the show, got the Dead Reckoning battle chest sitting behind me. This thing is gorgeous. So any Dead Reckoning fans that are out there, if that's your number one game of all time, I hope you picked one of those up. Not to do FOMO or anything like that, but it's going to take me an entire evening to figure out how things go in it. I haven't quite figured that out. I might bring our friend over and say, can you set this up for me? But it's intended. A wooden chest where, the drawers open up. I might put a little video out there, and you could take out a drawer and take it to the table so you can play very specific expansions. But Dan Cunningham did a fantastic job with that. So I wanted to just mention that because we had him on the show in the last 6 months or so, and I know he talked at length about that. So that's arriving, and people are seeing that. Also has some straps on it. I can't imagine, but I think we'll probably see someone at Gen Con carrying that around with a calyx on their back.
Yeah.
And I know I'm going a little
picking one up for
here,
a friend.
But I got a chance to play Kinfire Council. We were really fortunate to get a copy of that, and I loved it. And so the expansion, the Winds of Change expansion, allows people to play solo or co-op. You like it? I'm making up words. And I played it solo to kind of learn the rules, but I am very much looking forward at going through that game more with you, over the next few months. It does have some tokens in it, though, so I'm a little afraid to bring it over to your house that you might just throw them all over
the place. It's kind of what I do.
We'll have to walk through that one. You might have to come over here to play that one, Doug.
Sounds good. All right. All right. Our spotlight this week is Far Away. Beyond the Sea of Mist lies Alula, a mystical continent where landscapes shift like dreams. In Far Away, you're an intrepid explorer drafting vibrant region cards to chart a path and score fame. But here's the twist. You score your journey backward. Can you plan ahead to outshine your rivals? Each player starts with 3 region cards, each depicting a biome represented by one of 4 colors and a duration value. The region cards also may contain various quests, clues, or wonders. Over 8 rounds, you simultaneously play 1 card from your hand to your tableau, left to right. Players then draft a new card from face-up market based on the exploration value of the region cards played, with lower numbers drafting first. All players who have played a region card with an exploration duration higher than their previously played region card find a sanctuary. Sanctuary cards provide game-end scoring opportunities and having more clues in your tableau gives you more choices when adding a sanctuary card. Place your cards strategically to collect resources, animals, plants, or minerals to satisfy quests played on earlier cards, like earning points for thistle icons or night cards. At game's end, flip your tableau and score from right to left, revealing only later cards to fulfill your earlier quests, making every choice a mind-bending puzzle. Score fame from region cards, sanctuaries, and map bonuses with the highest total winning. Ties are broken by the lowest exploration duration. Far Away, designed by Johan Gupi and Corentin Labra, and published by Pandasaurus Games, is a clever card drafting game for 2 to 6 players ages 10 and up, playing in about 10 to 30 minutes. Can you fully master Alula's ever-changing paths to claim legendary fame, or will your journey unravel like an ill-fated adventure? So that is a brief overview of Far Away. Michael, I know you're a big fan of this game, so I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I really like this game, and I liked it. Don't get me wrong. I had played it, and I liked it. I enjoyed it. I didn't know where it would fit, whether family or a game group. And then this game found its way into some controversy because it was nominated for an award, of all things.
Monster.
So Far Away was actually nominated for the Kennerspiel des Jahres, which is, the expert game of the year. And other games that it found itself in competition with include... and now I should say past tense, included. Too many tabs here, Doug. You ever have that condition?
Yes.
Included Endeavor Deep Sea, which ended up winning, which is definitely, my opinion, a hobby-level gamer game. Loot, which I am yet to play, and then Far Away. And I think part of the reason why it became so controversial is... it's a simple, straightforward game.
I disagree.
I disagree.
Do? I think it's perfectly placed in the Kennerspiel.
Okay.
And not
but I guess
not
there's
the
a controversy.
Yeah.
And it might just be the way we approach the game or how you play it. But I'll tell folks, here's why I like it, what I really like to do. For me, the entire game is in the first 2 cards I get in my collection, and I just try to build around that the best that I can. So I'm very much ignoring cards 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, unless one just happens to come up. So for me, the way that I approach that game and what I like about it, it is a very short-term strategic game. It's not a 2 or 3 hour strategic game, but it's a strategic game that plays in under 20 minutes. Plays excellently on Board Game Arena. There can be some fiddliness to it at the table when you're teaching it to people the first time. I know I tried going through this with one of my kiddos and trying to play the game and manage the game. I was really struggling in my own house. I tend to enjoy the scoring aspect at the end, going player by player and seeing who scored what. I really like that, and the scoring is not always tight. There can be a runaway leader. I mean, I've played games where somebody will hit a crazy combo 3 times. The things will combo, and they've tripled the score of other people that everybody else that's playing. But again, what I really like about it, I like that I haven't played many games, especially I would call this a card game, even though there's coasters and different things, but where it's that strategic in that short period of time. I just really like the payout. Even when I play poorly, I guess I got a 13 that game. My combos did not come to fruition, but because it's a 15-minute game, I'm all right with it.
Yeah, I think for me, where it's a situation where I think it's a good game, and so it's like, even though I don't enjoy it as much, I'm not going to say it's a terrible game. It's a good game, and I think what's kind of tricky about it, and I think where that kind of controversy comes from, is that the rules within themselves are very simple. It is a very straightforward game of you're taking cards. What you're doing on your turn is not complicated. You're playing a card, you're picking up a new card, you're playing a card, and then you're going to score it in reverse. What makes it a light hobby game, and probably fit into that category for me, is the amount of brain power that is required for this game to be juggling things. Because I agree 100%, and I don't think you're unique in the strategy is your first two cards are going to set up your entire game. The problem is that doesn't necessarily mean that the cards that you need are going to come to you. So you need to have alternate strategies going on throughout the game.
That's a really good point.
And so there's a lot of juggling. And I feel like for me, what I don't like about the game, again, admitting that it's a great game and I can see why people love it, but I feel like for me, I have to keep too many things in my head at once because I'm trying to pay attention to the cards I have in my hand and which one I might play, how those correlate with the cards that I've played, and then keeping a track on which card I may want to add to my hand because it might go into my tableau, while simultaneously thinking, well, that's the card I want, so should I play this card that's going to help me with my tableau, but I want to be lower than Michael so I can grab that card. And then Michael plays a lower card, so now I have to re-strategize which card I may want, and then how that's going to fit into the whole machine again. And so I feel like there's a lot of repetitive brain computations that I have to keep doing while I'm playing it that makes it, I mean, it's a puzzle.
Yeah.
And if you like that puzzle, that works. But for me, it's just like, it's just a step too far where I'm like, I don't want to be thinking that. And it is one of those, like you said, it can be very swingy that if your combos work out great, it feels awesome. And if your combos don't, because the cards never come out, and it's like I played this card to collect the Thistle ones, and I just can't seem to get any Thistle cards, it can really be like, ugh, what did I do? And in comparison, I played Castle Combo, which is another game by Pandasaurus, kind of like they do just a great job of these little kind of smaller card games. I played Castle Combo this weekend twice, and the first one I had a game where it was like everything fell my way, and I had a game where it was like I just couldn't get anything synergized and working together. But I enjoyed playing both of them. Like both games were equally fun to me, and I don't necessarily think I get that in Faraway. But like the graphic design is really clear and really well done, and I think it's a great game if you like that puzzly nature. It just wasn't the puzzly nature for me. The puzzle that I kind of like.
No, those are all great points. I think I'll just add in what I really like about it. I love hunting for combos. And oftentimes, if I need a 60 or 90-minute Euro, I can usually figure out a way that I'm going to get one or two of the combos to fire off at one or two times. And I feel like the game Faraway, especially with those sanctuary cards and how they come out and can kind of add in other potential combos to fire off, I just I feel very satisfied when I'm done playing that game. Like I feel like I played a 60 or 75 minute game. And again, I'll just say really good implementation on Board Game Arena. Very good game to get done with people from all around the world who are really at your level in 20 minutes or less. The first few times I played, I got absolutely trounced. And then once I started to figure some things out, it's like, okay, now I'm seeing how this all works together.
All right. Well, that is our spotlight game this week. Is Faraway from Pandasaurus Games. Want to remind everybody to watch, subscribe, like the YouTube channel. We appreciate that. As Michael said earlier in the episode, making up all sorts of words this week. Spread the word about the podcast. Leave a review on the platform of your choice. That helps us out immensely. And if you have questions or comments, reach out to us. Email at gameschooler.com. Now let's move on to the game of the week.
The game of the week. The game of the week is an in-depth look at a family-friendly game we think you should try if you get the chance. This week's game is Star Explorer, designed by Lucas Zaka, with art by, we don't quite know, published by Queen Games. This is a 2024 release, playtime of around 20 to 30 minutes, 1 to 5 players, and according to the publisher, it's ages 8+. I'm sure Doug and I will have an active banter about that. Doug, give us an overview.
Gaze into the vast night sky where stars await your discovery. In Star Explorer, you're an aspiring astronomer, flipping tiles and marking constellations on a rotating map to chart the heavens and earn the most points as the ultimate night sky explorer. Each player starts with a rotating star map board, a marker, and a set of constellation tiles, depicting famous constellations like Orion or Ursa Major. The start player selects a constellation size, and all players flip over one of their constellation tiles, matching the selected size. Players must then draw the constellation shape on the visible night sky of their map board. Players earn points for each accurately drawn constellation, with bonus points for placing it among various star types. Any stars you're unable to draw become fading stars, which will cost you points at the end of the game. After each round, players rotate their boards, and the player who scored the fewest points in the previous round chooses the next constellation size. The game ends after 6 rounds, and players tally points from each round. Fading stars, central stars, and constellations crossing the star axis, and outer rim stars. The player with the highest score wins, crowned the true night sky explorer. Can you map out the cosmos to become a legend among the stars, or will your constellations fade into the galactic void? So that is briefly how you play Star Explorer,
Nice overview, Doug.
Which was originally called Night Sky Explorer. So it was a previously released as Night Sky Explorer. Queen Games has now released it as Star Explorers. What stands out about this one to you, Michael?
Well, I love a good flip and right. I love a good roll and right. But what stands out to me are the white markers. The white markers on the black background. And not to just go like full gamer production type, but that made this pop initially when I first saw it on the table. It had kind of a, woo, what's happening over here? Yeah. And then I also, once, you were teaching the game and started to understand the placement rules and constraints and how everything scores, that board goes from being a wide open night sky to filled in, and it's impossible for me to do anything, and I don't want to take negative points, but now I have to take negative points now. Yeah. So the game just does a really nice job of filling that board in an enjoyable way, and that's I will say on the front end, I like a game that implodes on itself. I also like a roll and right. So right away, a flip and right, roll and right, show some information, make a decision, try to make something happen. This game is doing all of those things in a pretty compact package in under a half hour. How about you?
Yeah, the first thing I wrote is very similar. Is I love how it closes in throughout the game. That very first round, you're like, I got all the space in the sky to put my constellations in, and then you slowly start rotating the board, and it isn't until you get to that last one and you start butting up against the very first constellation you drew, and you're like, I don't have any place to put this.
Yep.
The other thing I love about this game is that I love trying to balance the multiple objectives at the same time that you're trying to not only just physically draw the constellation in the correct order on your board, but you get extra points if you incorporate certain colored stars. So if I can get more yellow or white stars in it, I might get more points. It may be asking for the blue stars. And so you're trying to think of a way that you can, and then you get bonus points if you connect those stars. So if I can connect a white and a blue star, and those are my bonus ones, I can get more points. So not only are you thinking about where to put it, but is there a way that I can put it on my board and get as many of those stars filled in or incorporated into it? Meanwhile, there's the end game stuff of like, well, if I could put it at the very edge of the galaxy, that would be nice. If I could cross over this line, that would give me some extra points. And so trying to fill that and optimize that is something I really enjoy in this game. And I think it has a kind of a subtle interaction that you don't find in most roll and write games. That ability of the player who scored the fewest points in the previous round, being able to pick that next constellation size can really put an impact. So the constellation size go from 5 to 10 stars, I believe.
Yep.
And so, you get towards the end of the game and you're like, ooh, I do not have a bunch of space. And then the person is like, I've got tons of space. How about we do the 10-star constellation? You're like, oh, man. And it's subtle, and it's not necessarily, I'm looking at your board and doing that. You're like, I maybe have a good spot to get a 7 in there. And so I like that normally it's just kind of everybody's playing in their own world.
Yeah.
And that just little subtle thing, and it's not, a lot of roll and writes have, or flip and writes have like a goal or an objective that everybody's racing to, and that's kind of the interaction. Rarely is there anything where it's like, I'm going to do something that directly impacts how your game is going to play. And this game has that, which I think is pretty cool.
Well, and it's pretty cool, but there's a definite it's for my feeling, and I didn't get it till the second game. It went from a fairly low interaction game to a, whoa, these next 2 rounds, I am in trouble. But then the fact that I only got in trouble once because lowest score gets to choose the next one.
Yeah.
Right? So that second to last round, I was in some pain, and I had no place to put any tiles. It actually, I'm going to skip ahead to my only criticism of it is that I suffered from some AP with this game because you do have to make a decision, and that decision sometimes all I had were bad decisions.
Yeah.
So what's the worst decision? And that could be somewhat debilitating at the table in a way that's something that, my opinion, a lot of modern games iron out and don't even give players the opportunity. But I liked it. I really liked it. I felt, the first game we played, I thought I was rewarded for my excellent decisions. A little bit of arrogance, flew a little too close to the sun. In the second game, there was some pain. I filled up that board a little too much early on, and there's some negative points happening there. But I do like that, especially if it's, if you only own 20 games and you want to get the game back to the table over and over. Can I ask you a question, Doug?
Yes.
8+.
Disagree.
So do I.
Yeah, I mean, I think, to your point, I think that there is a level of, and it is what I have in my kind of things to be aware of, there is a level of AP that can happen in this game. The good news is everybody's going through that AP at the same time, so I don't really think it slows down the game. The same way that you're thinking, how am I going to make this work? I'm thinking, how am I going to make mine work?
Yeah.
But where I think the 8 is definitely wrong is it can be tricky trying to get those patterns on the board, and you can rotate your constellation, but you can't flip it. And so there are some that are going diagonally through stars. There are some that are, and there's a grid on there, but there is a little bit of a trickiness sometimes where even with you and I, you have to be like, did I draw this right? Or is this going across? How does this one fit in there? And I think that's the thing that precludes it from being 8. And
the shapes and getting the shapes right and the mirroring of shapes. Go ahead. What'd you put?
Yeah, I would say probably certainly low end 10.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit higher depending on where your kids are at, but definitely
I wrote
not
10 to 12.
Not 8. Yeah.
Player dependent 10 to 12. That's what I had in my notes. I think 8+ could be a stretch, especially if you're trying to expose somebody to the nighttime sky and have a lot of those science connections and make some of that. I think there are different games that could get you into that subject matter at a younger age than the one that's the game of the week this week.
Yeah. But I do like your comment, too, about, it does seem like there are a lot of games now that nerf out any kind of punishment to its detriment. And I think this has like just that right amount of it where it doesn't get, it's not overwhelming and it's like, okay, I have a couple fading stars maybe in the last round or whatever, but it's like at least you are faced with, well, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. And you just have to make do, which I think is a great kind of life lesson and skill, right?
Yeah.
For kids, like, well, there is no optimal move. They're all bad. Doesn't matter where you place it, you're going to have to lose something. Is there any place where it's better to lose stuff? So I think those are good. The only other thing I wanted to note about production, you mentioned the dry erase markers, which are really cool, and I didn't expect them to work how they did. Like, oh, this is going to be weird.
Didn't expect them to work?
But yeah, work in general and or be as cool as they were. With the white markers on the black background. But the original game uses cards instead of the tiles, where the Queen Games has tiles for the constellation. And not that I'm saying I don't necessarily know that one's better than the other, but I'm almost curious of like, what was the reasoning behind that? Like, what was that discussion of let's change these into tiles as opposed to cards? I think there may have been a little bit different stuff with round structure, but
I see it now, and I see it on Board Game Geek.
It seems like it would be, it works both ways, but certainly would be. It's certainly easier to shuffle little stacks of cards than it is to shuffle little stacks of tiles as well. So.
Yeah,
and any ideas on why that would be?
Well, if you're listening to an audio podcast, I would encourage you to just look at the comparison on Board Game Geek. My only idea is to have it to stand out in a very crowded marketplace. The oblong, oval adjacent looking tiles, they are not easy to shuffle. Even if you have, two healthy thumbs and two healthy hands,
too
they're
soon.
still okay. Sorry, but I did like how they were stacked and how they looked. That's interesting. That is an interesting development choice. I wonder if the designer pushed for that. You never know. My only thought is to get to stand out. Why do you think they did that?
I don't know. It kind of boggles my mind outside of like just to have a little bit more chunkiness in the, or just something more tactile than just cards.
And it could have come down to cost. Maybe the cardboard tiles, they've got a production set up where they can get that in and get that out easy. And maybe the first publisher had a better connection in a different country with cards. I don't know.
Well, or if you're punching out the boards and then you have all of the extra space around the boards, you just throw those in there and you don't need cards at all and you're just saving. So, I don't know. I think
you just answered your own question, Doug.
Maybe. Yeah. Dig far enough. How about skills, Michael?
Yeah, skills. I've got a plethora of skills. So I'm just going to start with 3, but I'm going to start with 1, and I'll send it back to you because I don't want to talk for the next 10 minutes. But decision-making is the skill that comes out in every part of the game, whether deciding what combos to run towards, which direction, rather, to get your shape going. But we define decision-making as a game that allows players to make decisions based on currently or previously available information. You don't have all the information early in the game, and late game, you're kind of hoping that some parts don't come out, so you have to plan and mitigate for some of the good and some of the bad. You're trying to get combos, but at the same time, you don't want to absolutely fall off your board and get stuck with a bunch of negative points. And I just think that's a wonderful little area of this flipping right. You?
Yeah. I think one of the really unique ones that I feel like, when we talk about skills and you talk about, okay, which ones can you develop, which ones can get better. And I think personal responsibility, which is a game that highlights the cause and effect nature of a player's actions and the related result, I think is a big one, of just in the very fact of you see the cause and effect relationship of the where you put your constellation in the very first round and how you butt up against it in the very last round. And the next time you play that game, you're going to remember how that worked out for you. Yeah. And you're going to try and mitigate that in the future so you don't run into that problem. And you're going to think as you're rotating, okay, am I leaving enough space to this side of the board so I'm going to have as much room when I rotate this next round? And being thinking about that, and that nature of my actions caused this. Okay, the next game I'm going to think about where I'm placing things before I place them a little bit more carefully. And so I think this is a great game for highlighting that skill.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I would also add into what you said and what I started with observation, a game that rewards careful watching of details and behaviors in order to understand or arrive at a judgment. I'm not observing what combos and what parts of the sky others are getting to. What I am looking at is, do they have a lot of open space or little open space? Mm-hmm. Because I can play defense or I can push ahead and play offense. The example that Doug talked about earlier, it happened to both of us in different games where somebody picked a very large number at an inopportune time just by looking across the table at the other person's board, like, ooh, I can make this work, and you can't. 10.
Yeah.
And it's little. I'm not saying that would get better in repeated plays of Star Explorer, but I do think that it is a skill that it is in every game that you play. You
have a better idea to know what you're looking for.
Let me try it a different way. A lot of flip and rights suffer from being a heads down solo game that you play with other people at the table. And Star Explorer doesn't. You are encouraged to look around and see what other people are doing to make a decision about what you're going to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think tying into the personal responsibility is resource management. And I think normally when people hear resource management, they think of games like Stone Age or Catan that we talked about earlier in the episode, where it's like, oh, I've got my wood tokens or my cards, and I've got to facilitate those. Your resource is space. You have a finite amount of space that you can put stars in, and managing that is the crux of the game, and trying to figure out how to do that well. And I think it leads to the last skill I want to highlight, which is resilience, because this is a game that does a really good job of, which we've talked about already, but it's like there are no good choices here. What's the best of the bad choices?
Yeah.
And the fact that it's only playing over 6 rounds and it gets over fast, the pain is not enduring, but you get to have those little moments of inopportunity and things not always going exactly how they should. The little bit of pain, as Michael would call it. And I think that does good. You can build up your resiliency by little pain points, as opposed to one giant "you lost the game" type of thing. And this is a good game for that.
And I have another skill that I don't know if I've ever talked about before. If I have, it's over 150 episodes ago or so, and that's responsiveness, a game that rewards a player's physical or mental reaction time, and not in the sense of I'm going to get this done the quickest, but there is something. All right, in our house, we've been playing a lot of Scribbly Gum lately. Previous game of the week, Phil Walker Harding, flip a tile, draw in that direction, okay? And you don't have to be very responsive. You pick a direction, you go based on the card that's in front of you. In our game of the week this week, which has two different titles, that's why I keep saying in our game of the week this week, but in Star Explorer, as I'm drawing out across the sky with the white marker on the black background, I'm suddenly looking at possible different combos that I could be connecting, and almost having to make little mental notes from turn to turn, round to round. Maybe I come out and I see, I don't know if they're quasars or what, but a very specific type of star in the second round, and I just make that mental note of, ooh, I need to come back to that. However, in rounds 3, 4, and 5, there's a lot of other things that are happening in the game. And so I noticed, really trying to come back to places in the sky later of the game, but as the board is rotating out, I couldn't find where they were. Like, I know I wanted to get back. Where was that part of the board? And being able to connect and click back in from previous rounds was a very different game skill that I haven't experienced or faced. And that's where, especially in the first game that we played, I thought I was slowing down the entire table, because I was really taking in the board is moving. I am moving on the board by drawing with a white marker on a black night sky, and just being able to respond to that. It was different. It really was. It was different enough where I thought about talking about it at length in the skills section instead of putting it somewhere else. So
sure.
that was cool. And that was something that would not only draw me back into the game, but for people who love rolling rights, flipping rights, and are looking to show games to other people, this might be one to try for that reason as well.
Yeah. As far as final thoughts for me, I think it's a refreshing title in kind of what has become a tired genre of flipping rights. There kind of seems to be a trope of this is how these work, and you build this combo to that combo, and I mark off here and there and there and that type of thing. And I think it's a refreshing entry into that world, and I think it's a unique theme. And I found the gameplay to be both rewarding and competitive, and I enjoyed all parts of playing this game. Like, this was one where I was fully engaged and really enjoyed, and it clicked for me. How about you?
Yeah, Star Explorer is a game that I'm glad that the publisher brought to the United States. I mean, this was a game that sold out very quickly, had a Polish release, a Polish audience was the target market in Essen in 2024, and a game that got a lot of buzz and disappeared. And I was grateful to see it emerge in our marketplace so that we could give it a try. As you said, there are a lot of flipping rights out there, and I'm glad I got to play it. It's one that I would definitely add to my collection as well.
All right, so that is our game of the week, Star Explorer from Queen Games.
The School of Gaming. Yeah, you like that? Mixing up. Yeah, I got a little chuckle out of Doug. Just, I don't know. Yeah, sometimes the spirit operates. In the School of Gaming, we discuss concepts, keywords, etiquette, emphasis added, and helpful ideas in the world of gaming. This week, we discuss player interaction.
Yeah, so I thought the best way to start this is with a little definition. So I made one up. Don't know if it's
from Jeff Engelstein, from Tom Bassel. Oh no, this is from the Doug Kotecki of the Game Schooler podcast fame. Go ahead, Doug.
It'll probably be verbatim to somebody else's, and I'm thinking I put something together. But I have it as kind of the way that you and I talk about it is other players directly or indirectly impacting the decisions you make throughout the game. And so something is happening that somebody other player has done, which changes and alters what you might do, or somebody specifically says, I'm stealing that, and now you have to go cope without it or steal something from them. So it can either be very intentional or indirect. And I think it's something that you and I have put a kind of a premium on when we're reviewing games, because it forces players to connect with one another. And when you're playing as family or with kids or in an education setting, that's just as important as sometimes the skills, and it is a skill of learning how to connect and interact with one another that we think is pretty valuable. So it is kind of something that will disqualify a game for us.
Yeah, our whole show is built around player interaction. Our whole show is built around bringing people to the table to play games together. Now, I might play games solo. Yeah, Doug might paint minis. Yeah, there are definitely a lot of branches in the board game space, the board game family tree, but player interaction is something that we have talked about without ever really labeling and discussing it like this. So can you give me that definition again, Doug?
Other players directly or indirectly impacting the decisions you make throughout the game.
Yeah.
Is there one of those that you prefer? Do you prefer direct or indirect interaction?
I don't have a preference. It would be like, do I prefer brisket or pulled pork? It depends on the day.
Yeah.
For me, player interaction is very much where I sit today. It's aligned with expectations. I need to have an idea of how the player interaction works, so I know how I'm going to approach the game and play it.
Yeah.
At the top end of the show, you talked about a game that was a party game that played with a lot more players than you were used to. That's very different than a 2-player tug of war card game.
Yeah.
So just knowing both have extremely high levels of player interaction. If I'm playing Lost Cities, there's some meanness in Lost Cities.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm not using words. I'm just going to set the card down and let you decide if you're going to pick it up or not. Bob, you just went past that route. Are you going to start another one with the 6 that I just laid down, even though you just played the 7? I'm not saying any words, but my attitude and my tone of how I'm playing the cards down is very different than a Survivor game that you referenced earlier, right?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I think it's very similar, which is I enjoy both of them in the right setting. And like you said, mostly comes down to there's a time and a place and the expectations. I think sometimes primarily with take that games or the complexity or levity of a game can sometimes be change that, where if you go in expecting more of an indirect type of approach, and then all of the attacking is very direct, and you're kind of thrown off guard. But where it's like, if I go into it, like if I'm going into a game of raids where I know it is going to be cutthroat, mean, you're going to do mean things to me, and I'm going to do mean things to you, and we're okay with that, and that's part of the agreement. But if you sit down not knowing how the game raids works, and you think, all right, well, I'm going to develop my little boat here, and I'm working in my thing, and then you just get blocked out, and then it's like
your boat can go nowhere.
Yeah, flip the table rage. So that comes down to expectations.
You said something there that's smart. So can you hold on to that thought while I just point out your smart thought? That you use the word agreement. And I think that that's spot on. Where I've struggled with player interaction in the past, especially when I first started coming to game night at your house, I didn't have the knowledge or expertise or gamer shorthand down yet. So I didn't really know what I was walking into. Whereas flash forward, 6-7 years later, now I can hear the shorthand, and I know, okay, this game has there's going to be some take that. Right? I didn't know what that meant when I first started playing. People are going to destroy the routes that you build. They're going to jump into the routes and score points off it. So I think that social agreement is a key aspect and part of the player interaction that experienced veteran gamers, if you want to bring people into the hobby, continue to let people know what the interaction is and explain that shorthand until they're at the level that you are.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on limited or no player interaction? So the
Again,
opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah, I don't mind it if I know that that's what I'm signing up for. That's a lot of Euro games that we've played and reviewed.
Yeah.
Where okay, the 3 gives us a resource, and we take the resource, we can trade it in and fulfill a contract, versus a 4 that's going to give us a different resource there's 4 pips on that die. I also like that. But those are not the type of games I'm going to sign up to play at a convention. Those are not the types of games that I'm seeking out to, pay $3 or $4 to have a single play of. But I have a lot of those games in my collection. I do enjoy them.
Yeah, I feel like the longer I've been a gamer and the more games I've played, the less interested in those type of games I've become. They have really fallen down on.
Can you give an example of a game that has?
Well, for example, last week when we were talking about letter D games and Dominion came up, I think that's one that kind of there's a little bit of interaction in there, depending on there's a couple of interactive cards in there, but for a lot of it, it's very head down. I'm playing my game, you're playing your game, that type of thing. And maybe that's a poor example because there is a race going on.
No, that's an example. That's good. That helps me to.
But there are games where I get done, and we play them, and it was like our heads were down, nobody was talking to each other, and to me, it's almost like the equivalent of taking a history test in high school, and it's like we were all in the same room together and we all took the same test, and then we come out and say, how'd you do?
Yeah.
And it's like that's just not what I'm looking for anymore as a gamer. Like if I want to take time out of my schedule away from my family, get together and play games, I want to be sharing an experience with somebody.
Gotcha.
Not knowing that we all ate the same chocolate sundae and then are going to compare notes anymore.
So I like that type of game if we are creating the sundae together and there's that banter at the table. If it's just heads down and I'm doing what I'm doing and we look up and tally score at the end, I'm with you. So I think, the type of game that you're talking about with a low player interaction, I'm either probably going to want to play it at 1 or 3 or 4 players. I don't think that those games really tend to shine at 2 players. We played a game a few months ago now called Apothebakery, right? A game that I had backed and crowdfunded and was really excited. And it was very much that type of game that you're describing. There's low player interaction in there, right? You're kind of just baking your own ingredients and seeing who can get the sets a little bit more efficiently than the next. And I really enjoyed it solo, but I could see playing with you. Like, I don't think Doug's having a lot of fun here. What can I do to bring more fun into this? And I'm with you. I think I can see why you're saying that about that level of interaction.
Well, and sometimes the interaction can be so limited of just a race for objectives. Yeah. Like we're all racing for the same thing, and there are various checkpoints and things like, oh, he got that one. Oh, he got that one. And it's like that's very minimal interaction, which I don't mind. Like if there's also a difference between interaction and tension. A game with good tension can make up for a lot of lack of interaction if that tension is just kind of below the surface. So a game can be engaging without a lot of interaction if there's that tension of, I hope he doesn't go there, I hope he doesn't take my spot, but I guess in that regard, that is interaction. You're blocking me from a spot. But there is race games that have that where it's like I'm just on my board and you're on your board, and it's the first person to get to 5 gets this extra bonus.
Or
maybe that
the
is
Quest for El Dorado, where the marketplace disappears when somebody buys it out. Right, that is a race game of the week back in episode 80 from my favorite designer of all time, Eric Knizia. And I think that's, you have some of that subtle interaction that some master designers do. I love those moments where I'm going to the marketplace to get a specific card. Wait. Doug, you bought that? I wanted more of that.
Yeah.
What about when it goes wrong? What about player interaction gone too far, or where it's just like, oh? Have you ever had any of those moments? Do you have any of those examples? Because I have one.
I think there are two that come to mind. One you've already addressed, which is the idea of mismanaged expectations. I think that's when interaction goes wrong. The other time I think it goes wrong, I mean, certainly if people around the table take the interactions too far is a whole other element where you're doing some sort of take that and somebody kind of pushes the lever down a little bit too hard and it becomes towards a mean level. The other thing I don't really like is the third kind of thing where I think could be a problem is a level of forced interaction in the idea of we're going to try and make you do silly things and you get up and move around the table and that's going to be funny because you're getting up and moving around the table like that. I think of a game like Quelf, which I don't know if you've ever played that, but it's a whole bunch of weird tasks and things that you're doing, and it's really kind of, you're going to talk like a pirate for the next thing, and it's like, it's funny the first time, but that's like, stop trying to make me be silly. And then in a comparison, like a game like Mountains of Madness, where it does have some of those elements and it works great because it's a thematic tie-in, which is, oh no, you've gone insane, so now you have this weird quirk that you have to carry up for the rest of the game. Then it works. But sometimes there's a thing where it's like, don't try and make me be funny. Let the game kind of happen.
Yeah.
But what's your example of interaction gone wrong?
Well, back to the expectations. First time I played Shadows of Camelot was at a convention. That game plays up to 7 players. There are 8 cards to choose from, so one of the characters will not get seen, even in a 7-player game. And there's a traitor in the game, right? You have, so you're taking actions. This is a classic game. It's out of print. It was my first time ever playing it. And I'm, Bruno Catala and Serge Leggett, 2 of my favorites. And I'm looking around like, who's the traitor? Who's the traitor? So the whole game I'm thinking, who's the traitor? Who's the traitor? Who's the traitor? Nobody. We play a 7-player game. There's a 12.5% chance that one person won't be the traitor. We just happened to have that initial game. And that was one of the expectations where I was openly seeking out to have a certain experience and didn't have it. Not that I felt cheated out of it, but it's just one of those things that sometimes if I'm anticipating a level of interaction and if it never comes, I do almost feel cheated out of it. If I sit down to play a take that game and there is no take that, it's like, oh, come on, my 9-year-old will beat me up. Why won't you try to beat me up here? That's what's going on in this game. So I think the going too far can happen on both ends. I think people can be, overly mean, and I think people can be overly nice. And if you don't quite get that agreement right, that's where some of the breakdown happens. Obviously, a topic that you and I have talked about a lot over the last 5 years, and I'm surprised it took us, to episode 229 to get it in the School of Gaming.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you talk about the idea of like kind of feeling cheated. That's kind of how I feel when I play a game that afterwards I felt like there was little interaction. Like when you get those, it's like, oh, none of us talked that entire game. Like that's kind of like I feel cheated when that happens. Like you were like, I wanted there to be more, or I wanted to be a specific interaction. I'm like, I might as well just knitted a bag in a corner here. Like what are we doing here? Just like, so it's interesting that you use that word. So let us know in the Discord what you guys think about player interaction, which kinds you like, if you like minimal or if you like direct or indirect, and how your expectations have changed that. We'd love to hear about that. Now let's move on to the high five. Every week, Michael and I highlight a list of games we want to play, enjoy, or spread the word about. Plus, lists. Everyone loves lists. And this week we're talking about our favorite route building games, which was interesting list to put together.
Interesting, tough, impossible to get to 5? What define interesting here?
Interesting in the way that I found myself choosing games that my number one is going to be very clear of why it's on my list, and a lot of them will be, but I felt like there was ways where it's like, yeah, that is one. Where it's like, when you hear the word route, I think it always means road or pathway. And there's a couple of games, my list is full of those games, but there is one in particular that is not that I was trying to figure out if there was more of those type of games that I was kind of missing out because maybe Board Game Geek doesn't classify them as route building type of games, because I feel like there's more out there, but I didn't really do an exhaustive look on it. So kind of curious to see what you've got on your list, and if that one is a crossover for both of us.
Yeah, well, if we get crossovers, just give me the stop. I don't want to take all the material here, but I know number 5 we will not have a crossover because I loved this game, but I don't know when I'll get it played again. I might have to run this at our local convention. That's Cascadero, designed by Reiner Knizia, art by Ian O'Toole, and published by Bitewing Games. Almost combined about 3 words there that don't quite exist. But I just want to read part of the description from the publisher on Board Game Geek, because I think it really captures what I love about this route building game. 3rd paragraph down for those reading at home. Players must decide between 2 competing strategies: build long chains of their envoys to achieve synergies and objectives, or establish smaller, separate groups of envoys to trigger timely town scoring. So there's 2 different tracks in Cascadero that the game is all tracks. I mean, that's really what you're trying to move up different achievement tracks, but you're doing that by building routes into towns. And you're going to be rewarded when you are not necessarily the first person in the town, because you have to build some trust with the people that you're building into the town. So you're rewarded when you're the second or the third person that's building the route into that town. And terrible description there. I get that, but it's one that I would encourage you to just kind of check out if you really love Reiner and some of his other tile placement games. What I will say, everything is smaller than it looks on Board Game Geek. Okay, like the pieces are really tiny when you're putting them down and building them out. The board has a very small footprint, but it's a game that boy, reading the rules, I was like, oh, I think I'm going to like this. And the first gameplay I played, I was like, man, I really enjoy what I'm doing here and how the combos are playing and how I'm building the routes out. And then almost building a little route on the combo tracks themselves of how I'm going to get to the top. Because if you don't get to the top in your color, you don't win. So it has that Knizia scoring mechanism in it as well. Just a game, like I said, I really enjoyed this one. That's my number 5, Cascadero.
All right. Well, that's in the vein of the one that I added to my list. So I'm sure yours will. I'm sure we'll have crossover there after that. So my number 5 is Get On Board, New York and London.
Oh, such a good game.
From episode 86, we went deep dive on that, from Yellow in 2022 from Sayashi. Get On Board is a kind of a combination of a roll and write and a board that you're placing your routes onto and picking up various passengers that you're crossing off on your sheet and trying to expand your route to pick up more people, drop them off, connect various locations on the board. And it's a very unique situation of combining that writing element with a full physical board that you're manipulating stuff on. So that's my number 5, Get On Board, New York and London.
Awesome. My number 4 is also art by Ian O'Toole, designed by Annabelle Holland and released in 2014. Publisher is Capstone Games, and that's Irish Gauge. Irish Gauge is not a game that I currently own. I will pick it up again at some point, I would assume, but you got to have 3 to 5 players to play it. It is a cube rail game, so on your turn, you can either place a share of 5 companies up for auction, or you can decide to build tracks in one of those 5 companies. You could also decide to upgrade a town to a city, or just call for dividends. And that's the whole game. But the decision space of what you're doing, it takes place in the nation of Ireland. And just seeing how companies are going to rise and fall. It was a 2021 Mensa recommended, so thank you for that, Doug. And again, very similar footprint of a box to Cascadero. There's just a lot of game in that box. It's a hobby level game though. Even though the weight on Board Game Geek is only 2.37, and according to the Board Game Geek community, it's 10 plus. The reason why I don't currently own this game is I can't get this game played with my family. I just can't. It's there's one too many things that are going on in that game. Maybe not for other families and other households. I'm just speaking for me and my house here. But I really do enjoy the tension of, am I building into a company? Am I selling out of a company? That timing mechanism of that. So that's my number 4 is Irish Gauge.
Yeah, definitely a lot going on there with the stocks and the route building there. So my number 4 is Railroad Inc. from Horrible Guild 2018, designers Helmer Hawk and Lorenzo Silva. Possibly being replaced by Railroad Tiles, but I have not played that one yet. But in Railroad Inc., you are rolling dice. It is a roll and write game as well. And you are choosing the different pathways on the dice. Some of them are highways, some of them are railroads, and you're trying to connect them all and make it all work in your little player grid and make connections and get people from one side of the board to the next. And so good, kind of one of the first roll and write games that had where it was a little bit more of, you're not just crossing things off or making X's, you're drawing your little routes on the board and drawing highways and train rail and stuff like that in a way that worked. It didn't have to be, you don't have to be a Leonardo da Vinci to draw these pictures into the little boxes. So,
it would probably help.
Yeah. I would take AP. He'd have AP trying to fill it in. But that's my number 4, Railroad Inc.
Oh, that's awesome. Great app as well for that game. Yeah, so we're up to number 3.
Yep.
Doug, I had a list set earlier in the day, and then I realized, my 3, 4, and 5 cannot all be designed or have art by Ian O'Toole. And so I had a different game in this slot. But I was like, you know what? It's my list. We're 229 episodes in. I'm going to stick to my list. And so guess who my artist is for my number 3?
Ian O'Toole.
Correct.
Yes.
And this is Carnegie, 2022 release, designed by Javier Georges, and Quinna Games is the publisher. I know I've talked about this game on quite a few high fives, but for me, it is a route building game that it's at that hobby level that I really enjoy playing. If I have 2 to 3 hours to sit down and play a game, you are trying to build into major cities right around the time of Andrew Carnegie. I hope I got the right first name there. I think I do. But you're rewarded on how many link together. So the 5 major cities that you're trying to build into, I think it's going to be New York and I should have researched that. I think it's New York, New Orleans, Chicago, L.A., and San Francisco, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, you're trying. If you don't build your routes together, you're not going to score points. And immediately, so you're trying to get your technologies built up, and you're trying to get your built into certain routes. And there is that tension Like, oh, because it's a very set number of turns, so like there's only 3 turns left. So I can see that player has to get into the East Coast. I can see that player is going to go to the West Coast. So I can use these next 2 turns to not allow them to get into the East Coast or West Coast on my turn. And so there's definitely a meta game that happens in this route builder. Yep, and it is, I think I got those cities right, Doug. I don't think I'm going to have to clean anything up, but I should have done that before. But anyways, beautiful game.
I don't think anybody's going to email us about
United
it.
States. Thank you, Doug. I'll move it along. Number 3 for me is Carnegie.
All right, my number 3 is Guild of Merchant Explorers from AEG in 2022. And this is by Matthew Dunstan and Brett J. Gilbert. This is the one that was similar to how you said Cascadero, which is it's not really one that you think of as a route building because you're not necessarily putting tracks or roads or things down. But every round you are placing cubes out onto the board, extending your influence around the map, and trying to get to different cities and locations in order to keep some cubes on the board or new places that you can branch off and extend your route even further. So that is my number 3, Guild of Merchant Explorers.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great game. Nothing to argue. I mean, really
not
good
on
picks.
your list?
Games of the week did not creep into my top 5, but I'm kicking myself. I was like, I should put that in my 2 spot just to say that I did. I mean, that's really good. But I haven't played it in a while, Doug, and I think there is some recency bias when I put together a list like this. At least I know there is, because my number 2 spot is Concordia. Only played it once, but the one time I played was a couple weeks ago, and absolutely fell in love with it. This is designed by Matt Gertz, published by PD Verlag or Rio Grande here in the U.S., Doug's favorite publisher of all time. Another hobby level game, but one that I think is also fairly accessible as well. Does play hour and a half. The Board Game Geek says 100 minutes, but in Concordia, you have a hand of cards, and the cards are going to be decide what you get to play. And it's one of those that you could take a rest action and pick up your cards and get some resources, or you can continue to push it a little bit. But you absolutely have to build routes, and there's a ton of different maps. The base game covers the Roman Empire. You have to build routes to score points at the end. And it's one that you and I'd heard a lot about from a lot of different people. You and I were sitting down at Gen Con 2 years ago, and the people we were playing Pick-a-Pepper with, it was that person's favorite game of all time. I was like, ooh, I do need to go back and check it out. And then, Keith Mateka, friend of the show and owner of Thunderworks, brought it up at the most recent Gamehole Con. Hey, if you play Concordia, the game's so smooth. It's awesome. I think you'd really like it. And so when I got the opportunity to play it, I was like, yeah, I really like this, and I want to play it. Similar to what I said about Catan earlier in the episode, I just want to keep playing it and see what there is to discover in that one. So that's my number 2, Concordia.
All right,
Matt Gertz does a good route builder just with his loops and what he's doing. The guy knows what he's doing.
He's built some routes. All right, my number 2, we talked about in episode 190, and that's Expeditions Around the World. And this is one, this is from Super Meeple. Wolfgang Kramer is the designer. Originally came out in 1999. The new version came out in 2024. This is one that I like that's different than any of the other ones on the list, which is you're building a route together. Nobody has a specific route color that they're in charge of. You're not making your rails go in a different direction. You're all sharing the same track.
That's cool.
And which I think is really interesting and cool. And there's those moments in the game where you're essentially you have certain objectives and locations that you want the trip to stop at, and you're trying to get rid of all of those. Check all of your bucket list locations off. And there are moments where you're like, I hope Michael doesn't move he moved the route there. How am I going to get it back there? Can I get it back there? Can I loop around? What can I do? Can I go there with another route? And I love that tension and interaction in that one. So that's my number 2, Expeditions Around the World.
Nice. Good choice. My number one is Kingdom Builder. Donald X. Vaccarino, Queen Games. I'm just going to read the board. 2011 was the published year, but I think the Board Game Geek tagline really explains it. Build chains across varied terrains to establish the best kingdoms and win. Chaining together routes to try to win. Just an awesome game that we covered at length. It was our game of the week in episode 171. It's one of those games that I didn't play for my first time until pretty soon before that. So it was, I take that back. Played it in July of 2020, but then replayed it again, and it felt brand new in May of 2024 with Doug, just, as we were getting ready for the show, and played with one of his kids. The whole game unlocked for me. It's like, where's this game been and how have I not played this before? And I think that's a common theme with a lot of the route builders that are on this list. They just have that sense and that feeling of accomplishment, taking risks, getting payoffs for those risks, and also seeing where things don't work out. But I really enjoy Kingdom Builder, and if you want to hear more about that, you can go back and listen to episode 171 where it was a game of the week.
All right. My number one is the easy choice, and sometimes there are lists that come out, and it's like I can't, whether it's my favorite game in the world or not, I just can't help thinking about it as the top of the top of the list, and that's Ticket to Ride.
Yep.
From 2004, Days of Wonder, Alan R. Moon. Getting your locations and putting your train pieces out on the board and collecting those train cards in order to put those pieces out. There's just something that, if you say route builder, that's the first thing I think of, and I can't help it. And so just based on that, I have to put it on. I know next week we're going to be talking about engine building games, and I have a couple of those that can't help but think about those, and as a result, they go 1 and 2. So that's Ticket to Ride for me. We talked about it in episode 2, Michael.
We don't send people back there to listen.
No,
Tell them
don't.
Other times that we've talked about the Ticket to Ride franchise, because we had other.
Yes, that's a better choice. I am going to
and the other thing
quietly
that I think,
vamp.
No, I have just a couple things to add in on that. I thought you'd put it on your list. That's why I didn't add it to mine. It could easily be anywhere in the 1 through 5 for me. I love that the first time that longest route. You know what I mean? It's a part of the game and is oftentimes a critical part of who's going to win the game. So that race that's happening for that as well. What are some other shows to send people to so they don't listen to? The most recent one
we talked about was episode 72, which we talked about the Cities series.
Yeah.
And then way back in 24, episode 24, we talked about
3 years ago? Jeepers.
We talked about the kids version, the first journey. So
yeah.
Great game there. Catan was one that just missed out on my list.
Same for me.
And along with, I was surprised Airlines Europe wasn't on your list.
Well, I thought it'd be on your list. So it was like,
interesting.
Well, he's going to do Ticket to Ride. Oh, so I see the double think. You did Ticket to Ride thinking that I would do Airlines Europe. Yeah. Tell folks about it who haven't gotten a chance to play it because it's woefully out of print.
Yeah, it's very similar to Irish Gauge. Similar stuff, just a little bit simpler, I would say.
Yeah.
Also designed by Alan R. Moon. So, any other ones that just missed
Smartphone
out
Inc.
for you?
Smartphone Inc. I had on there, and when in place where Carnegie was in the 3 spot, I bumped it out just prior to record. Episode 77, we did a deep dive on it, but you're building routes into markets, kind of a little different take on a route builder. You have to build into specific markets, and you got some first movers advantage there. Ivan Lashin designed an awesome game. I'd put that at a hobby level game, and where if you can get into that market first and kind of time your phones. I feel like a phone mogul in 2019 when I play Smartphone Inc. And I love that game.
All right. Well, let us know online what route building games you enjoy, which ones you love, we missed. It's always hard because there's games that we just haven't played. Michael talking about Concordia, for the first time. I still haven't played it, and there's just not enough time. So any time that you can, share something on the Discord, maybe it's a game somebody hasn't played or even heard of. So,
and I do love when you share on the Discord, people, and Doug does as well. We talk about that. When the high five people drop their own list for their letters and other games, it's awesome. It's one of the best parts of our show.
All right, so you can join that Discord at gameschooler.com/Discord. And again, a reminder to subscribe to the podcast. Follow us on X. We are at GameSchoolerU. And subscribe and like the videos on YouTube. Next week, we're going to be talking about the Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game, mitigating the churn, and engine-building games. So thank you so much for spending the last hour or so with us. We truly appreciate it.
Now, get out there and keep gaming.